Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 141. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. And Dave, I think we're going to have a couple more topics to discuss in the last several episodes. We got a bunch of roster moves. We got a couple of cornerbacks being signed, including this team reportedly reuniting with Cam Sutton. So that's a big story for us to dive into. Cam Heyward is back at OTA. So as you said, pre-show, today is a show all about the Cams.
Yep, it's Cam Wednesday, if you will. So yeah, boy, these things kind of happen. I mean, it just goes to show you never know what you're going to be talking about from show to show, right? If you would have told me on Monday, I mean, I probably would have believed you. It just would have been new topics. You know, if you would have told me that Cameron Heyward shows up to OTAs on Tuesday and Cameron Sutton re-signs with the team on Wednesday morning, I probably would have believed you. But I mean, that's how quick sometimes some of these things can happen here. So we've got that, got a couple other kind of news items to discuss, and I think we'll be able to make a full show out of it today.
I think so. So just a quick recap of some of the things we'll talk about. Then I want to dive right into Cam Sutton because that's the most immediate, I think the biggest story of these last 48 hours or so. Pittsburgh, Cam Heyward returned to OTAs yesterday, still looking for that new contract. Cam Sutton reportedly signing a one-year deal for the vet minimum. Pittsburgh meeting with Sutton today. That's first reported by Jerry Dulac and then confirmed by Sutton's agency. Pittsburgh officially signing other slot corner Grayland Arnold to a one-year deal that was reported on Tuesday, made official Wednesday morning. And then a more minor roster move, Pittsburgh waive injuring cornerback Luke Barku and signing wide receiver Jeray Jenkins for some offseason 90-man depth. And so those are the big topics we'll talk about. But Dave, we got to start with Cam Sutton, his return. We talked about it once Detroit released him. You wondered, could that be a possibility once the felony charges for domestic battery will reduce to misdemeanor? Dulac also reported that several weeks ago, the Pittsburgh's brass, Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, met with Sutton. So to me, it felt like one of the former Steelers corners were going to return, either Patrick Peterson or Cam Sutton. There was going to be a reunion of sorts in the works. It ultimately appears to be Sutton. Your thoughts on that?
Of the two between Patrick Peterson and Cameron Sutton, I'm you know, in my opinion, I'm glad they chose Sutton. I mean, obviously, there's still a lot of questions surrounding Cam Sutton. How's the legal process going to play out? How's the public court of opinion going to play out on him? What kind of player do they have back in him? Here's the thing with him. You go back and, I mean, obviously he flew the coop last year and went to the Lions, mostly played outside with them. That did not go overly well, you know, collectively, when you look at it on a play-by-play, target-by-target basis. I think he played even less than 40 regular season snaps inside in the slot. So it'll be interesting to go back and maybe dig through some of those there. His future, for whatever's left of it moving forward in the NFL, is going to be inside. I think both of us can agree on that. Mm-hmm. If they can get that Cam Sutton that they had a couple of years ago that's playing inside, this could wind up being a fairly decent signing for him. Obviously, if this thing plays out with it being a veteran minimum, you have zero risk really involved here with him. Once again, we'll have to see. Are we talking 2-game suspension, 4-game suspension? I don't know. You're obviously going to have to navigate the waters on that. I would like to think that the Steelers have done a lot of their homework on him. Obviously going back several weeks ago, where there was that supposed meeting between Omar Khan, I think Mike Tomlin, and Cameron Sutton. One would think that the Steelers have done the due diligence on their side to see how maybe they think this will play out moving forward here. And once again, assuming all that comes out of the wash okay, you just hope that you get the Cam Sutton that logged all those slot snaps for you a couple of years ago.
Yeah, from a talent football standpoint, Sutton to me was the best option they could have added to play that slot role. So presumably you'll have, of course, Joey Porter Jr. outside shadowing, following number one receivers, Dante Jackson, who, yes, is undersized, but has been an outside corner virtually his entire football career, college and NFL in Carolina. He'll be outside opposite Porter, and then Sutton inside on paper. You can work with that kind of quote unquote big three, starting three. The vagueness and the uncertainty is the legal side. And it's probably less the legal side as it is the NFL side at this point, because he's now facing misdemeanors. And I don't know every detail of the legal situation he's in right now. There was, just to summarize, accused, alleged of domestic battery. He fled. There was an arrest warrant out for him. He turned himself into police. The Lions released him. He's now gotten the felony charges dropped to those misdemeanors, but the NFL can still certainly step in and suspend him for their domestic violence policy. And I think to me, that would seem likely to occur. But the question becomes, when would that occur? Typically, the league likes to wait for the legal stuff to totally wrap up before they weigh in. But they have discretion to do basically whatever they want to do. So the looming question to me is going to be, is this guy going to be able to play? Less about how capable of a player he could be for Pittsburgh.
Sure, that's why I said the unknown there when it comes to how this plays out. I mean, we're talking 2 games, 4 games, 6 games. I mean, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out here. But I would imagine a lot of that ideally went into the discussion about the salary. We don't know how long we're even going to have you for here. So, and then obviously the public court of opinion, because of obviously the nature of what he's been what was arrested for and all like that. And you got to navigate through that. So, I mean, look, however many games, assuming he makes the roster. And that, that's probably pretty dangerous at this point. I don't think, a guy near 30s coming off the legal issues and the kind of season that he had outside, I don't think that's a 100% lock. I do like his chances, obviously, however. But assuming he does, and assuming, you get him for at least 10 games, you could do worse at this point of the offseason with a player like Cameron Sutton, especially if he's going to play inside.
Sure. And as you said, that's probably where he's most comfortable. And the question is, okay, Pittsburgh generally, and I'm speaking broadly, but generally they avoid guys that have these character issues and these red flags and this kind of baggage. Not always. And Mike Vick's a good example of them signing somebody that did some terrible things. Sutton's, again, just been accused. The legal situation has to play itself out. But I'm guessing that Pittsburgh was comfortable in taking on whatever PR hit there is and, the baggage that Sutton brings, because they know him as well as anybody and always praised him for his maturity and football IQ and the person that he's been. So that's probably why Pittsburgh is taking this chance, quote unquote, even though the risk is minimal from a financial standpoint, because they, were with him for 6 years, and they know him better than anybody and can evaluate the situation better than probably any other outside team.
Right. And, we'll see how long it takes before he gets in front of the camera for the first time, because if I'm not mistaken, that would be his first time in front of a camera since all this went down, right?
The last time he was in front of a camera was in a police station on the police camera.
I will say this about past of having to write about and kind of cover Cam Sutton in the past. He gives a lot of words in his responses. He is extremely hard to transcribe. Of course, I can say that because I'm probably one of the hardest people on earth to transcribe if people were to transcribe me. But he really gives a lot of drawn out answers. You know what I'm saying? He kind of answers questions with more than what reporters ask for, I guess would be the way to describe that in the past with him. Obviously, whenever the next time he gets in front of the camera, he's going to be asked about, I'm sure about his arrest and his ongoing legal situation. And I'm sure he will be trained by saying, I can't comment on that as best as he can. But until he does, that's going to be part of the initial process of him being fitting back into the Steelers, reacclimated, what have you there. And then from there, I would expect him to be, very, very low profile at that point. Just keep his nose down and get after it at that point. So once again, I think maybe you said it best, less concerned about his fit and how he might potentially play at this point. Look, they did not get a top 4-5 slot corner in the NFL at this point, but at least they got a guy that they're comfortable with. And I think you kind of at least know what you're working with, a guy that's very smart. I keep going back to how Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert characterized Cam Sutton, coming out of that draft and all, a guy that knows the defense, a guy that knows everybody's job on the defensive side of football, a guy that's very smart, a guy that can help you direct traffic and all like that. So, you would think that part of his game hasn't left him. It's just more of the physical component and him getting readjusted to playing back inside. And once again, was he the league's best slot corner when he was manning that position for the majority of the time, during his career with the Steelers? No, but he was adequate, if you will.
Do you view Sutton, assuming he's able to play in whatever games he's able to play in, is he an every down full-time slot corner, or could they still try to potentially piece this together in terms of a rundown guy and a pass down slot corner?
I imagine. I think that's to be determined, obviously. But I would think the way this roster sits right now, you look at the legitimate slot options on this team. I think Cameron Sutton goes right to the front of the line right now.
Sure, I think he is most likely to be that every down guy. He's not Mike Hilton against the run and not quite there as a blitzer either, but he's improved as a tackler. He was not a good tackler when he first came to Pittsburgh, and he improved that, I thought, pretty dramatically throughout his career. I think you go into camp, and if somebody really impresses you against the run, a Bishop, Arnold, we'll talk about him here in a second, Josiah Scott, then maybe you open up the role a little bit. But I think you go into the summer and the training camp believing that Sutton is going to be that every down kind of a guy. Certainly should work on pass downs. I think the question is, could somebody impress you as a rundown guy that may create a little more rotation with that role? Will be my thing to watch.
Sure. But I right now, I think I'm focused on Cam Sutton,
Sure.
The schematics I think will play out.
Sure. I think also with Sutton, you talk about some of the sub-package stuff and dime situations stir down. Sutton's last couple of years, he was used to be able to play some deep safety too. And that allowed Minka to roll and rob underneath. And so while Sutton's primary role is going to be in the slot, I think we'll see some more post-snap type looks with him that'll help free up Minka even more. And so that's a smaller benefit, but also a benefit he'll offer.
Sure. The more you can do, right?
Yeah. So as you said, Sutton's going to have to get in front of a camera. I assume that'll be a next week thing during mandatory minicamp. The signing won't be official today. Will he be there tomorrow for OTAs? I don't know if that'll happen. Maybe you do that and get the story out of the way on a Thursday and come back from minicamp, perhaps. but he'll have to explain himself, and Mike Tomlin and his team will have to explain themselves too. I don't want to just sweep under the rug, because listen, whenever he got released from Detroit and all that story came out, we thought his career was done. We thought this guy's career was over, and rightfully so. He's fleeing police, worn out first arrest, felony charges, domestic battery allegations. I mean, it looked really, really bad, and I don't want to just forget about that, although his legal situation has seemingly improved with that felony charge being dropped. I think it's I don't know all the legal stuff, pre-diversion trial or pre-diversion program or something like that, where he's now facing just the misdemeanor instead. So I don't want to overlook that and celebrate it, too much, because there's still a lot to talk about here. And it's not just, last year's Cam Sutton that, without this baggage attached to it, but from an on-paper standpoint, football standpoint, he is their best slot corner option. And if he can, as long as he can play, and I don't know where that's going to lead to, then he's going to be, I think, a solid player for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, and that's why I added in there, the court of public opinion, because this will be scrutinized from all sides, and yeah, I would imagine Mike Tomlin will be asked about this and his history. You're not going to get a lot out of that side. He's going to say we're leaving the legal side to the legal side and all like that. But it is part of the process that both Sutton and Omar, whenever the next time he talks, he might be asked about it. Probably not going to see too much of him until probably training camp time there. But Mike Tomlin obviously will speak about it. I mean, he's in the building today, evidently, and his talking about Cam Sutton, and his agency's already congratulating him and welcoming him back to the Steelers. So I would imagine that's about signed, sealed, and delivered at this point. So will he be? I mean, there's a report that based on the way things are being reported right now, there's a chance he could be on the field today. Yeah,
that's a great point. You're right. He is at the facility, according to the reporting, and his agent, David Cantor's already got the graphic up of him, returning to Pittsburgh. So as you said, seemingly everything is done. So if not today, then you're probably right. We'll likely see him out there tomorrow, and probably best for him to speak with reporters right away and not try to hide and get it out of the way and be able to move on from that aspect of things. And once you go back from minicamp next weekend, you're just solely focused on football for himself and for this team.
Exactly.
All right. Anything else on Cam Sutton? Again, I just, it's a good move. It's fine. I'm not mad at it, certainly, but it is, I don't want to just forget about the legal stuff that we were so, engrossed in just a couple of weeks ago, because there's that element, and it may be one of those things where we're all just motoring along come training camp and everything's going well, and the NFL steps in and says, you got 6 games, Cam Sutton, or 4 games, or whatever it is. And this team will have to also make sure there are backup options for Sutton if he's ineligible to play.
Yeah, and once again, like I said at the top there, I would imagine the Steelers have done their due diligence on this and looked at it from all sides, and the possible, what the worst case situation is, and what hopefully maybe might be the best case situation when it comes to games missed or not missed.
Sure, and maybe that's one reason why, had Sutton not been signed today, had that report not come out on Wednesday morning, we'll be talking about Grayland Arnold to lead off today's show, and Pittsburgh officially signing him to a 1-year deal Wednesday morning, first reported on Tuesday. Former Eagle, former Houston Texan, spent the last 3 seasons in Houston playing a mix of cornerback and special teams. Was listed, announced as a safety, but last year, Dave, according to PFF, played 113 snaps as a slot corner, about 5'9", $186 when he came out of Baylor. So he profiles as that slot corner type. And you can add him into the mix now with Cam Sutton, with Beanie Bishop, Josiah Scott. That's likely to be kind of your group of 4 guys to see interior work this summer.
Yeah, I think you've got yourself a lot of guys to kind of look at and work with now moving forward. Obviously, Josiah, they've had most of the offseason, got a good understanding of him. Beanie Bishop obviously has been around since being signed as an undrafted free agent. You kind of you know a lot about what Cameron Sutton has done in the past, and Arnold is a guy that can function as probably at the bottom of the depth chart, at least initially there.
Yeah, so another guy that'll be in the mix. And if Sutton's suspended, unable to play for whatever
Don't
reason,
go out and buy that Arnold jersey.
yeah. Who was the guy? Oh shoot, who was the guy from Monday? The player they last traded for in June, Ron.
Oh yeah. I've already forgot.
I feel bad now.
Glenn. Yeah, I already forgot the name on that now.
Well, anyway, yeah, don't buy his jersey. Don't buy the Grayland Arnold jersey either. But a guy with some NFL experience, and I don't want to discount that. And again, you let those guys go into camp, let them compete, see who works out, and there's still going to be a role potentially for another slot corner. Just for general depth, you don't have just one guy who can play in the slot, because what if Cam Sutton able to play but just gets hurt? And then also, of course, with the legal situation and a potential possible NFL suspension. So we'll certainly be watching those guys as well.
Ron Garden, that's who we wrote and talked about from that the Steelers had traded for more than 50 years ago the other day. So give him his due respect and get his name properly back out there.
Yes, we apologize, Ron. All right, so that's the skinny on Grayland Arnold. Anything else, Dave, you have to add on him?
No, just interested to see how all that plays out right now, really, and to watch Sutton meet the media for the first time. And I think we both agree that if things go perfectly as we sit here right now, Cam Sutton's probably your best option, your best and leader in the clubhouse at maybe being the starter at slot.
Correct. He should be the starter at slot corner, assuming he's able to play. Is the door now completely closed on Patrick Peterson?
Yeah, I mean, barring injury for at least right now, it would seem that would be the case.
I think Sutton would have to be suspended for that door to potentially open. And let's say that Sutton was, I don't know when that would be. Let's assume maybe sometime in August, sometime early in the season. Then maybe you sign a Patrick Peterson because he knows your system. He can jump in hopefully right away. But I don't see that door opening until someone from that group is unable to play for whatever reason.
All right.
Speaking of Cams here, different Cam, different situation. And this one surprised me, to be honest. I don't know how it took you, Dave, but Cam Heyward returned to OTAs on Tuesday. Still looking for a contract. His situation has not changed. There is no deal that's been reached, and Heyward is not sitting there and saying, I no longer want an extension. He still wants to be extended by Pittsburgh, but he did show up for Tuesday's voluntary OTA practice. Had a long 13-minute or so Q&A with the media and just kind of outline where he's at. And it's really things he's already spoken about on his Not Just Football podcast, but said, I want to be valued. And he thinks he's a top 5 player whenever he's healthy and on his game. He feels good. The body feels good. He thinks that he can be that rare exception to be that 35 and eventually 36-year-old D tackle that can still make a bunch of plays. And so just frankly, I'm trying to get in his head right now. Why do you think he decided to show up for OTAs that he said he was going to skip?
Yeah, I'm kind of understanding that part of the process of what he's trying to accomplish throughout this. No, I mean, you're talking about OTAs here. You're talking about a voluntary part of the offseason here. It seemed like he was pretty headed down the road of at least wanting to prove a point or make a statement throughout OTAs by not attending OTAs because of his contract. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I don't know what he really accomplished, to be honest here, and especially when he shows back up and he doesn't have a new contract in hand. I understand part of it. He's just trying to make a point. Hey, I want you guys to know that this is important to me, and that's why I'm not here for the first 2 weeks of OTAs. Is it the best of both worlds for him to not be there the first 2 weeks and be there for the final week? Which, by the way, I think he say something. He's got something related to the Walter Payton Man of the Year thing that I think that's going to maybe cause him to be away on Thursday of this week. I think him and Russell Wilson have some sort of function related to that. So in essence, it might just be him showing up Tuesday and Wednesday for OTAs, and that's it. Is he just trying to come out of it smelling like a rose on and be on both sides of it? Hey, I made my point. I wasn't there for the first 2 weeks, but at least I got back around the team in a leadership role for the final week. I don't know. But usually if you're trying to make a point like this, and especially if it's contract related, and you know that you can't be fined and you know it'll be at its core by the media, at least it should be viewed of, hey, this is voluntary. He's not required to be there. And then you don't show up for all 3 weeks, but you do show up for mandatory because that's quote unquote mandatory. I just don't know what he was willing to accomplish here, as far as the negotiation side of it goes.
And we should point out, he not only showed up, he was, from what we saw, practicing, right? I don't know if he was what level of participation, but he was out there in a helmet on the field going through some drills, right? So he was not just there on the sideline as a, hold in style where you're there, but you're just hanging out kind of on the side doing your own thing. He was, being part of the team. I think basically what the calculation was is what you said, Dave, that he made his point. He made it a story. He made his feelings clear. Everyone talked about it for a week or two. Now let's go back with the team. He's a guy that obviously wants to be around football, be around his guys, and he certainly knows he's a leader and there's expectations and guys follow what he does and how he goes about his business. So I think he had gotten the point across. There really was no need to continue to keep making that point because it had already been made the first 2 weeks.
Yeah. But once again, he didn't make any, at least not visibly yet, he has not made any progress in what, his obviously his offseason attempt is, and that's to get security. Look, I mean, let's break down kind of the things of what he said. He wants to play 3 years, right? And when I was asked about this on Dave Weekly's show yesterday, where's the context here? Is he meaning 3 years in addition to this year, or 3 years in total, meaning including this year? I've kind of taken this with everything that he has said over the last, calendar year or whatnot, that I envision what he's trying to say is I want to play 3 more years, meaning including this year. So 2024, 2025, and 2026. First and foremost, is that the way you kind of have interpreted what he's been saying?
That has been my read. I can't say for sure, but that's my understanding of how he's framed things.
Okay, mine as well. Second, if a new deal is going to happen, according to him, it doesn't sound like it's going to happen today or tomorrow. Right?
Correct. He said there has been some talks, but essentially he said himself, don't expect a deal to happen on Wednesday. So implying they're not close to reaching any sort of an agreement.
Now, he did put back out there, I think he thinks he's a top 5 player still, and he can do things. He can play both the run and the pass. And, he's been quoting, tweeting a few things that, things shouldn't be sacks only, sacks only isn't the only, stat when it's related to guys. I get all this side of it here. The core of it is, though, at the reality of everything right now, he is 35 years old. He still does not have an extension in hand. He probably would like an extension of 2 years. What else? He probably would like a little bit more money in 2024. He probably would like some sort of guarantees beyond 2024. The fact of the matter here is, though, things certainly at this point still don't seem like they're going to be headed in a direction or directions that he had hoped they would be heading in.
Right. The question still remains exactly what he's looking for contractually. Does he just want sort of the appearance, the on paper, the Polamalu, Heath Miller 2014 model of it's an extension, but you're not really gaining anything concretely from it in terms of a pay raise or any sort of additional guaranteed money, or what does he want here? And he says, quote, "I want to be valued at my position. I understand I came off a rough season, but I don't think it's a step down of where I can play. When I'm at the top of my game, I'm still a top 5 player at my position. I play the run and the pass. I bring leadership," end quote. So that's Heyward making the case for why he believes he's worthy and deserving of a contract extension despite his age and despite coming off the groin injury last year. And he says he's 100%. He's good to go right now.
Yeah, look, and he said something along the lines of it was the right side, I think, last year, and he had the left side. What do you say? Tightened up, or I forget what terminology he used there.
Yeah, but that was the second surgery he had right after the season. Remember, he posted that clip of him, and that was, I guess, just kind of a more minor thing to make him stronger in the long run, according to Cam Heyward.
Right, and I mean, judging by the words that come out of his mouth, he's healthy now. So it's just about the cardio, I think he had mentioned, and all. Look, I'm not worried about Cam Heyward knowing how to keep his body right, getting himself ready by week 1. I don't think anybody listening to this podcast is concerned about anything related to that. I think the core of the matter is you talk about a guy that's been healthy for most of his career, large part of his career up until last year. He is 35 years old now. Father Time is undefeated. You do have to be careful with whatever money you give him moving forward past 2024, especially from a base salary perspective, and especially from a guaranteed money perspective. Look, going to go back to what I wrote most of the offseason here when it comes to him, and we've talked about several times here. I expect Cameron Heyward to have signed a 2-year extension by week 1 of the 2024 season. Number 2, I have been counting on this extension for Cam Heyward since the 2023 season ended to be a quote unquote no new money in 2024 type of extension with modest to above modest salaries in 2025 and 2026. Might that be the end product here, or something relatively close, meaning, I don't know, not a couple of million in 2024, followed by, maybe slightly above more than slightly above more modest salaries, I suppose. But I think people should get the general picture when it comes to him. You do have to be very careful when it comes to guaranteed money. You have to be very careful when it comes to how much more above and beyond the $16 million that he is scheduled to earn right now in 2024. All of that said, this should not be rocket science or heart, rocket surgery or heart science, as I like to say, to figure out here. Matthew Marksy wrote this morning: are incentives the path to the right way to get a deal done with Cam Heyward? Look, I'm all for going that route. Sacks, pressures, total tackles for loss, whatever. I am in favor of that. The problem is that the Steelers do everything they can to stay away from incentives, barring it being the quarterback position. They don't like setting precedent when it comes to that. Now, obviously, Omar Khan still, we're trying to fill him out when it comes to, what he likes to do in the GM role. But I'll tell you what, we have already seen them, quickly try to work incentives out of other deals they have acquired along the way. Right. So there's no, I don't want to say it's impossible, but within all that, you would think that until we see something different, that they're not going to go down the incentive path with Cameron Heyward here.
Sure, I get that. You do have to wonder, is there a compromise if and assuming that Heyward wants some sort of new money in this extension? and Pittsburgh may be hesitant about that for a variety of reasons, and understandably so. Is there a bridge? Is it incentive based? I'll continue to talk about roster bonuses. Could that be an option? You get paid the third day of the new league year. That kind of tells you right then and there, well before the season begins, if you're going to be part of this upcoming season or not in 2025 and 2026. I wonder if that's the solution to figuring this thing out, because, both sides may have issues with Heyward taking no new money, and Pittsburgh may have issues with just kind of giving straight up new money in a potential extension.
Yeah, but I mean, all your offseason roster bonus are contract commitment triggers, calendar commitment triggers, and yeah, I mean, and I would think that the Steelers would probably have no issue going that route. Putting something like
they do that all the time,
right? $2 or $3 million due in March, and the only positive there when it comes to the actual player is they know, they have a pretty good idea of what the outcome of the upcoming, in other words, they can kind of at least predict their future beyond March at that point. Now, just because it's a $2 or $3 million roster bonus involved doesn't 100% guarantee you that you're going to be on the 53-man roster, but at least it ties the team a lot to you a lot stronger than what it was prior to the March roster bonus being there. So yeah, I mean, if that, and here's the other thing, it potentially brings more cash flow to the player within a calendar time frame as well too. So and cash flow is huge in the NFL, right? You talk about contracts and all like that. So could that be a reasonable outcome when it comes to this thing? No new money in 2024, or let's just say $1 or $2 million more in 2024 cash flow, and then very modest base salary or total cash flow in 2025 and 2026, with a 2025, let's say, as part of the cash flow in 2025, a $3 million roster bonus. I mean, in my opinion, is there really much worth in throwing in 2026 roster bonus? I mean, you could, but let's be clear and to the point. The real trigger of all this is going to be the 2025 season, I think, when it comes to a guy like Cameron Sutton. Once again, we're not breaking ground or news here when it talks to what the potential structure will look like. It's what best appeases Cameron Heyward, and what the Steelers are willing to risk moving forward. And at the core of this, really, I think it might be the Steelers saying, we got to be careful here, Cam, when it comes to any guaranteed money involved. Now, obviously, if you do give Cam Heyward a 2-year extension at this point this offseason, logic tells you that what you're probably going to do is turn a chunk of that base salary in 2024 into a signing bonus, so that a byproduct of that will be his cap number lowering. People have asked me, is it absolutely necessary that this team lowers Cam Heyward's 2024 cap number? At its core, no, you could probably work around it, but in doing so, you might have to restructure the contract of Minkah Fitzpatrick. So take your pick, of which way you want to kick the can down the road. Obviously, there might be less risk involved in kicking the Minkah Fitzpatrick can down the road, but you can accomplish it all just the same. I would just say that be prepared that if Cam Heyward signs a 2-year extension, that part of that will be turning the chunk of his base salary into a signing bonus, so that you can free up, $8 million in cap space.
Sure. And you're still very confident an extension of some sort will occur before week 1.
I'll be shocked if they don't.
I'm just, I push back on that just a little bit, because there's a lot of people that, frankly, I think would be shocked and upset if it did happen. I'm not saying who's right or wrong, but what is giving you the high degree of confidence that it's going to happen?
With Cam Heyward?
Yes.
I mean, it's been my thought and reasoning the whole time here.
Okay.
And the reason is he wants to at least to have it on paper. It seems like that he has, is under contract. He wants to be a one helmet guy and all like that in the NFL. And nobody doesn't believe that at all. I mean, I know he kind of hinted that, that if things don't go perfectly, that he would consider at least, testing the waters, so to speak. But I mean, that why wouldn't you say that as some, throwing it out there just from a negotiation standpoint there. I firmly believe in my heart of hearts that the end result here will be a two-year extension for him by at least week one of the regular season. I think things have been heading that way ever since the 2023 season ended.
This is more subjective and open to interpretation and debate. How do you think Heyward has just handled the PR aspect of him wanting a new deal? There's been a ton of pushback from the fan base. The majority, I would say, from what I've seen at least, are against the idea, and some seem just openly angry with Cam Heyward. How do you think he's handled everything from how he's, skipping OTAs, talking about on his podcast, showing up this week? How do you think that's gone?
As an overview, look, business is business. He's going to handle his business the way he seems fit. I could do a little bit. I suppose I could do a little bit without some of the, the social media aspect of it, but I mean, I understand the point that he's trying to make. And I'm sure you can keep receipts and not tell everybody that you're keeping receipts. Does that make sense?
No, I get that. Yeah.
But I mean, I look, will this go down as things not to do with contract? How not to negotiate your contract publicly on social media by Cam Heyward? No, he is at its core. Has he done anything wrong? Absolutely not. Is there anything that that any of us should sit here and nitpick with the retweets and I'm keeping receipts and all like that? Absolutely not. I mean, look, he's a competitive guy. You hate to read things that people say he's not worth that money and all like that. So, I mean, I get where he's coming from. I just think if you want to talk about the perfect viewpoint of it from how it looks perspective, yeah, he could probably done without maybe a couple of those. But once again, this is not going to go down in the Hall of Fame of how not to do things.
Sure. No, yeah, I have really no issue with how he's handled things. Again, I was surprised to see him show up this week, just because I wasn't entirely sure what message that was sending or what the rationale was. But if he's not going to fight for his best interests and getting an extension, then who else will? And he should be on the forefront of that, and every player should, and they should work to get paid and get everything that they can possibly get. And I'm all for that. And he's a guy that wants to be a Steeler and wants to finish out his career in Pittsburgh. And that is rare and it's important to him, and you have to respect that. But there has certainly been a lot of negativity thrown Heyward's way from this fan base. It's been, I mean, I said this before when this story first came out. I've been, personally surprised to see the fan base, in a sense, kind of turn on Cam Heyward and go from a guy that's been revered and loved and celebrated, and rightfully so, for all he's done on and off the field, to now being viewed as this kind of greedy guy that isn't worth anything. And many people thinking he should be traded or cut and shut up and play, and, he can't stay healthy. And I've just been surprised at the viewpoint of some of the fan base. And you can certainly argue and say that this team should be careful about an extension, or even not do an extension and let the season play out. There was certainly a valid case to be made for that. But it feels like the perception of Heyward from the fan base has turned from one guy that's been kind of on a pedestal for all he's done to somebody that has been looked at negatively. And I just hope that does not tarnish how people view Cam Heyward long term. I don't think it will, and I don't think Heyward has done much to really bring that upon himself. But that's, I think, been a change in how people have viewed and respected Cam Heyward.
Look, I think he's able to take a bite of the apple, good and bad, on both sides here by showing up for the last week of OTAs here. And as I wrote kind of yesterday, kind of my thoughts on on several subjects right now, kind of the hot topics, if you will. Let me see if I can pull that up here real quick. What I wrote yesterday about him.
I do think you're right. I think this is an olive branch he's offered by showing up this week. I think that's been the purpose of him doing this.
Yeah, look, you get 2 weeks of trying to make your point, and a third one of, hey, this team still means a lot to me. I know I'm the captain of this team. I want to be. It kills him not to be around those guys. I mean, it absolutely kills him not to be. Even if he's not, even if they told him, look, you cannot take one step out there on the field during OTAs, it absolutely kills him not to be around there. He needs that side of it. He loves that side of it there. He embraces that side of it. Here's what I wrote yesterday. So what's next for Heyward? I said, well, obviously he's yet to get a new deal, but there appears to be talk so far, blah, blah, blah. It might be a little while until we know the final outcome. I said, personally, I'll be shocked if Heyward does not sign a 2-year extension. Let's see. I also went on to write that should Heyward not have a new deal in place by the start of training camp, don't be surprised if he conducts one of those newfangled hold-ins. I said I won't blame him if he does. Business is business after all, and he will take care of his as he sees fit. And finally, at the end there, I wrote, in the meantime, just be thankful that the Steelers had their defensive captain back for some of the final week of OTA practices and potentially all of mandatory minicamp as well. We're having way too long a conversation about this, I think, about how he's handled this. In a perfect world, like I said, I might not have said a few things on the podcast or retweeted or tweeted a few things there, but I mean, at his core, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong there. I mean, you just asked how do I think he's handled it? I mean, I think he's handled it as good as one could hope. And the only end statement I will have on this, I think, is I'm not sure if he's really accomplished anything here.
Yeah, time will tell. I mean, it'll ultimately be judged by the end result. Does he get an extension? And if so, what are the terms? And if he does on good terms for him, then he's played his hand well. If not, then you can, sit back and analyze it and play armchair GM and just kind of, wonder maybe if he could have handled things differently. But I don't think he's done anything wrong. I think just to kind of recap, him being away the first 2 weeks from OTAs was a responsibility to himself and to do what's in his best interest for himself to get that message across to the team that I want an extension. This week is a responsibility to the team and his teammates to be there for those guys as a leader. But I just asked that question of how do you think he's handled it? Just from the standpoint of there has been a lot of pushback, and I've seen just a ton of negative comments, and some of that just internet fodder. Internet can always be more negative than reality, but I've rarely seen a positive comment regarding Heyward the last month or so. That's why I asked that question.
Look, it's easy to talk about somebody else's money when it's not your money. A. B. When have you known a fan bases in general as a whole to not think that X player is asking for too much money and should do everything in their power to make sure the team comes out smelling like a rose?
Sure, that's fair. I mean, generally, when players want more money, there is a tendency for fans to push back upon that because, in their viewpoint, they're already paid so much and they're being greedy and don't need more. But obviously, if Pat Frymouth gets an extension, I think people will generally be happy with that. They'd be like, hey, way to go, Pat. Different circumstances, guy getting paid for the first time, younger, all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, we're celebrating Cam Sutton's return, which is fine. But that's a guy that's facing still domestic battery misdemeanor charges. And people are mad at Cam Heyward for wanting to find a path to finish his career in Pittsburgh. I guess that's kind of the point I'm making.
Hey, look, there was the same stuff. I remember writing all that stuff about what a Cam Heyward extension would probably look like the last time. And I was if memory serves me, I was pretty damn close on the final numbers as well, too. But there was a lot of pushback even at that time that they shouldn't have signed him to the deal that they signed him to. And I think for the most part, he lived up to it too, right? I mean, last year obviously didn't turn out like everybody wanted, but because of injury. But big picture when it comes to him, I think he lived up to what they paid him.
Sure. I think he's lived up to every expectation set for him so far. The question is, if he gets extended again, will he live up to that? And it's a fair concern. I'm not trying to punch.
And that's where, and I agree. And I think that's where the guaranteed money discussion comes in at this point. It's okay to let him earn that at least the $16 million in 2024. Is there more risk in it this year than it was the year before? Yeah, he's obviously because there's a year he's a year older. He has now had the issue, missed the games that he missed last season. Yeah, there's a higher level of risk this year, but that's the contract that you agreed to at the time. I think they should honor that there. Now moving forward past that this year, and that's probably where the talks are all centered at right now. Is what's his new money average? What's the base salary is going to be? What's the roster bonus is going to be? How much is going to be guaranteed? That's where the consternation should be focused. And any smart fan at this point should be concerned about guaranteed money for Cam Heyward past this year.
Sure. Although I don't know if that's what Heyward is looking for. And we know Pittsburgh traditionally does not structure their deals in that way.
What's that? Guaranteed? Yeah.
In the guaranteed aspect.
Yeah, they would be really breaking precedent if they did that with him.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people nearby. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background, but I apologize for that. They're here pretty early today. And I just want to be clear. I don't want to sound like I'm that guy that's punching down on and yelling at the fan base. I'm not. I understand it. If you don't want to give Heyward an extension, I get that. I get the case for it. The dude's 35. You don't see many D tackles 35, much less 36, 37, which is the extension Heyward appears to be looking for. Play at that high level. And so there is a concern, a level of risk there that has to be certainly thought of. It. I don't want to give this guy a blank check, a fully guaranteed money, or any crazy, raise that will come back to bite you. I just say from a standpoint, I have been surprised at how quickly things have turned against Heyward from a media and kind of public and fan perception, from a guy that has been universally loved and revered to a guy that is now being, at least as of right now, kind of viewed as this greedy guy that's asking for too much and is better off being cut. I've seen so many of those comments, and that just has caught me off guard. Maybe it shouldn't have, because as you said, Dave, whenever guys ask for more money, there is always that group of fan that says, shut up and be happy with what you have. You got millions of dollars.
A large percentage too, really. I mean, you see it not only from the Steelers, it's just not specific to the Steelers fan base.
No, of course not. Just in general. But that's just my commentary on that. And I've just been surprised that from there's one camp where I think it's fair to say don't extend this guy, another to really needle Heyward for having the audacity to ask for more money or an extension to finish his career in Pittsburgh and want to be in Pittsburgh. Just has taken me aback a little bit.
Yeah, and in closing here, I think this ends up, we talked about the Troy Polamalu, Heath Miller kind of extensions of more than a decade, or roughly a decade ago or whatnot. And it with him showing up at this point without a new contract in hand, and with him not really being sure when this will finalize, if it does finalize. It feels like it's headed down the road of no new money in 2024 with no guaranteed money past that. So,
yeah.
But on the flip side, if he comes to terms with that fact, those facts related to that, this shouldn't be hard to put together.
Yeah. And so we'll just have to wait and see if they can all agree to that. If not, then this saga may continue for a little bit in the training camp, and we'll have to see what Heyward's posture is if a deal is not reached by the time they report to Latrobe in late July.
Right. Just stay healthy, Cam.
Yeah. All right, Dave. Just quickly to mention one of the other roster moves, more minor, but we certainly want to cover everything that occurred with Pittsburgh this past week. And Pittsburgh waive injuring cornerback Luke Barku, ball hawking corner on Pittsburgh's practice squad last year. He is now cleared waivers, reverted to IR. In his place, the team signing wide receiver Jeray Jenkins for some offseason depth. Maybe that helps replace Keelan Harris. And I believe George Pickens has missed parts of OTA, so get you another receiver in there as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested on the last part that you added there. The shorter. Obviously, you lost Harris, and then I haven't seen specifically. I haven't gone through all the photos and all like that, but I'm not 100% sure Pickens was there yesterday. Do you know for sure if he was or wasn't?
I don't. There was a clip of him on some water somewhere that did not look like Pittsburgh beachfront property. So right. He may be which is fine. I mean, and players miss. I think sometimes more players miss OTAs than people think. TJ Watt, I don't think it's been very much around OTAs this offseason, which is totally fine. But that also may be some of the pushback on Heyward, just to go back to that briefly, with him saying, I'm going to skip this stuff, and people may be upset about him not being with the team. But there are other guys like Watt and Pickens, maybe others that have missed some, if not all, of OTAs as well.
Right. So we'll see how long the new guys can stick.
All right, Dave. Anything else?
The thing with Barku and also Harris, yet we don't know the injury settlement amounts on either one of those two guys. Well, Barku hasn't had it. Yeah, hasn't had one yet. But I would imagine within the next 7 days, barring it being a serious season-long, surgery needed, he's probably going to get one as well too. But those will be minimum. If indeed Barku does get an injury settlement, probably going to be around the 3 week, which is probably what Harris ended up getting. We just don't have the data on that yet.
Mm-hmm. Anything else here from OTAs you wanted to discuss? Any other commentary that you wanted to dive into, or any other topics you wanted to talk about?
I just think that, some people are calling. Do you think Russell Wilson is corny with his actions? A lot of people have kind of pushed back with things that I post that Russell does off the field on social media. Several people kind of call him corny, and I guess that's the best way, the word that has stuck out the most. I think Mr. Wilson has been Mr. Steeler, and not that one should be applauded for doing, and praised for doing such, but I think he's made a really highly concerted effort to immerse himself into the team and the culture here. And I guess I kind of get some of the corny side of it, but I mean, I'd rather us be talking about that than the other side of it there. So and we'll see obviously how Russell Wilson's play ends up being on the field. I have no idea how that's going to turn out and all, but I really think personally that Russell Wilson should be applauded for how he's tried to immerse himself in this team and culture.
And we should mention some of that may come from the team. Instead of practicing during Monday's OTAs, they went to Kennywood for their annual team bonding exercise. They've done go-karts and Dave and Buster's in the past, and this year it was Kennywood. And I know Wilson had taken some photos with fans. I think Wilson's actions have been and will continue to be linked by his success on the field. In Seattle, I'm sure he did some of the quote-unquote corny stuff, and they won, and it was part of his legacy and story of what made Russell Wilson great. You go to Denver, he does the same things. They lose, they struggle. Now he's corny and, gets raked over the coals for, some of the things that people discuss in the media. So I think honestly, it's just all results driven. If he plays well and he does some of the corny stuff, people will love it, eat that stuff up. If he struggles, the team loses, people will say, all negative kind of things about him. I just think that's just how the social media world goes.
All right. Where to from here?
But I have no problem with Tim doing whatever he's doing to become a leader for this team and act like that and act like the starting quarterback for this team. I have no issue with that. I do want to mention just briefly, I know it's been talked about endlessly and I've tired of it too, but just some of the receiver stuff in San Francisco. Brandon Aiyuk officially holding out of minicamp. The 49ers have paid somebody else not named Brandon Aiyuk and giving Christian McCaffrey a 2-year extension to make him and keep him the highest paid running back in football. I do think at some point over the next 10 months, the 49ers are going to have to trade one of their top two receivers in Aiyuk and Samuel. I don't know if there's a path to keep both. I think that's going to have to be a decision on which one they're going to trade and when they're going to trade them.
The next, you said 10 months?
Yeah, because you could, yeah, go ahead.
In other words, make it through this year and then relook at. Here's the thing. Look, there's always a way to accommodate it. As far as cash spending and cap, obviously to a point, there is a breaking point. We saw the Rams a couple of years ago, and people kept saying, man, how can they continue to do this? And they were able to keep it together, but eventually it did kind of catch up with them, where they had to kind of watch the cash spending there for a couple of years. But here's the thing. If you're talking about between now and this time next year, one of name the players involved here.
Well, one of Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel, I think, will be traded by the draft next year. I think what happens is either you trade Aiyuk sometime before the season begins if you're not going to work out a long-term deal with him, or you get the extension with Aiyuk done and you're trading Deebo by the draft next year.
I mean, it's definitely plausible what you're saying and not unthinkable. But on the flip side of that, depending on the kind of deal and the structure and the years and all involved with Aiyuk, you could probably restructure around that, as you go on. And obviously, are you going to want to get rid of Deebo Samuel if he continues to play at the level that you think he should be playing at for the money you're paying him? And then obviously with Jennings, they like the upside of him as well there. So look, Michael Silver put it out there yesterday that he thinks that it's still not out of the question that they trade, Deebo or Aiyuk even by the trade deadline this year, but they're not going to do that if they're still in the thick of things.
Sure.
When it comes to trading one of those guys away, obviously, if they're out of it, if something happens or what have you, that's when that becomes more plausible. But I don't think you can rubber stamp it and say guaranteed that one of Deebo Samuel or Brandon Aiyuk, assuming both start the season on their roster this year, that one of the two will be gone by the start of the 2025 season.
Well, I'm not fully guaranteeing it, but I think that's where this thing is heading. I don't know how you re-sign Jennings, even if it was a 2-year extension, and draft Ricky Pearsall in the first round and expect to have those 4 guys just be part of your roster for years and years to come. Eventually, there's going to be a decision to be made. You're going to have to pay Brock Purdy next year. I know the cap's so malleable and the cap's going to go up, but that's just my sense of where this thing is ultimately headed.
Look, and they very well could still, trade one of those guys between now and the start of the regular season.
Sure.
Obviously, it's not going to be Jennings at this point. It's not going to be the rookie, Ricky Pearsall. You would think at this point, probably not going to be Deebo, right?
No, I not this year. I wouldn't think. I think they have to decide who they want the long-term guy to be, Deebo or Aiyuk, to be on this team 2-3 years from now. And Aiyuk is younger, and that probably pushes the bar towards him. I think if I'm John Lynch, and I'm making this 49ers Depot, but if I'm John Lynch, I don't trade anybody now. My Super Bowl window is still wide open. I re-sign Aiyuk, $30 million per year. I make a run this year. I trade Deebo next year for a third. Get a little cap relief on that, sign Purdy, replenish in the draft, and go from there.
All right, here's the thought on all that trade speculation right now. First and foremost, it's important, I think, and I did this yesterday in that post, to remind everybody that at least at this point now, when you look at a wide receiver market, Brandon Aiyuk, would you agree that Aiyuk seems destined to require a new money average of at least 28 million, or let's say at least 27 million?
Yes.
All right. If it's a little more than 28 million, his new money average would be greater than that of where TJ Watts is right now, at a little more than 28 million. This is something I wrote about months ago, but I think it's important to reiterate, especially at this time of the offseason, especially with Aiyuk still yet to sign a deal. The shock, and I wrote this at one time as well too. The shock would not be the Steelers actually trading for Aiyuk. The real shock and the news breaking aspect of that would be the contract that they turned around and gave Aiyuk, which now I think we both agree would probably be a new money average of 28 million. It would be such a shift in precedent to bring an outsider in that way and turn around and make him the team's highest paid player. That's of all this, I think that part of the Steelers potentially trading for Aiyuk seems to get pushed under the rug.
I agree, although those things are really just intertwined, one and the same. If you're trading for Aiyuk, you're going to do so with the understanding of what the deal looks like.
Right.
So, but I get your point. In a vacuum, the idea of Pittsburgh making a run for a big time name like Aiyuk is not a crazy idea. The other factor is the structure of the contract and guaranteed money in second and third years that would have to be, you'd have to really look at how Pittsburgh would handle that.
Right. You'd have to think Aiyuk, looking around at some of these deals, is wanting more than just a first year guaranteed. And if he's not the top of the market guy, then you're breaking another precedent by giving him fully guaranteed money past year one. So
have the other receivers gotten that? Have St. Brown and AJ Brown? I couldn't really tell. I was trying to look up their contracts, and I know Jefferson probably still waiting details on some of the particulars of that. But these guys have had to have gotten past first year base salary guarantees, right?
Jefferson obviously did.
Sure. But take him away because he's number one.
If you look at, let's see, AJ Brown, his fully guaranteed money was $51 million, and the signing bonus was not. I don't believe the signing bonus was 51 million. So that means that he got more than his first year guaranteed. Amon-Ra St. Brown has looks like 34.666 guaranteed, and I think only 16.6 of that, 16.67 was 16.7 million was the signing bonus. So he obviously got more than just the first year money fully guaranteed on that. Look at Waddle's deal. He got fully guaranteed almost 36 million, and I think 3-4 times what was his signing bonus that he got. 76 million of the total contract value is guaranteed for injury, of which 36 million is fully guaranteed. So he obviously got more than the first year as well too. So the short answer is these guys are getting more than the first year of their deal fully guaranteed.
Yeah, so I obviously would want to join that camp, and that'd be, the trickiness is the contract if you were to make a play for Aiyuk.
Right. I think when you back up and you look at this trade speculation as a whole right now, do you really get a sense that Debo's going to be dealt? Personally, I don't. Do you get a sense that DK Metcalf will get dealt at this point? At this point, no, I don't. Grayland Sutton, let's see if he shows up at mandatory minicamp. Sean Payton said yesterday he thinks that they might see Sutton, but he doesn't know for sure. Of all the quote unquote needle movers out here, and we're rehashing stuff we've already talked about here, but I think at this point, if the Steelers were to go out and acquire any kind of quote unquote needle mover at this point, it feels like it'd be Grayland Sutton.
It does, in terms of right here, right now, or by August. Yeah, I think that's the name is still circle. I just make the point about the Niners to sit there and say that even if nothing happens in terms of a trade with Pittsburgh or any team with either guy, Aiyuk or Samuel this year, I think next year you're going to be talking about trading one of those guys, and that really would be Deebo Samuel, because if you're talking about trading one of those guys, that means Aiyuk is not a free agent. That means he's on a long-term deal. They're not going to trade him after signing him to an extension. Just 8 months later. So I think Debo's a name to watch to be dealt next year.
During our podcast the other day, we talked about, what's the history look like when it comes to June? We said, surely there's been some trades in the month of June, right? And I told you I was probably going to go down that rabbit hole. Well, I went down it. In the last 15 years, Alex, post June 1st, for the month of June, there have only been 7 total trades dating back to 2009, the last 15 years. That's all, and quite honestly, most of those trades aren't very memorable at even us fans that follow the NFL closely on a day-by-day basis. A lot of them have side notes kind of attached to them that kind of justify them. Isaac Bruce, speaking of the 49ers, was traded by the 49ers back to the Rams in 2010. And that was done with a conditional 2012 draft pick, stating that if Isaac Bruce plays any snaps or something in 2000, and this was 2 years after, attached 2 years after him being dealt, that the 49ers would have got some kind of conditional deal. Basically, the 49ers came out of that with nothing. And the whole premise of that was for Isaac Bruce to go back to the Rams, the team that he obviously played his career with, so that he could retire, which he did a couple of days after they traded him. So there's an add-on right there. Jamal Brown was also traded by the Saints to, at the time, they were known as the Washington Redskins, obviously, in 2010. And Jamal Brown was upset with very disgruntled at the time. And that's kind of the reason that trade went down in June. I'm sure everybody remembers Gabe Carimi, right?
Of course.
No, they don't. And he was a 2013 trade from the Bears to the Buccaneers. I believe he was a little bit disgruntled. He wanted to get back around his former college offensive line coach who was at the Buccaneers at the time. 2014 was the only player for player deal. The well talked about and still remembered TJ Yates for Akeem Dent trade in 2014. I think you know where I'm going here. 2015, you had Andy Lee, the veteran punter, traded from the 49ers to the Browns. 2017, you had Greg Robinson traded from the Rams to the Lions. If you remember at the time, Taylor Decker had to undergo that offseason shoulder surgery, so the Lions were in a bit of a pinch there. Greg Robinson had kind of fallen out of favor with the Rams there. And really, if you want to talk, the most notable post-June 1st month of June trade that we have seen in the last 15 years happened just maybe a couple of years ago when the Falcons dealt Julio Jones to the Tennessee Titans on June the 9th. But even so, Julio obviously up there in age. There was that aspect of it, yada, yada. But, if you want to talk about, quite honestly, the last 15 years post June 1st trades in the actual month of June, there's not a lot to talk about. And quite honestly, Julio Jones might have been the most notable, if we're being serious here, of the bunch to get dealt there. Now, does history dictate what could potentially happen in this month of June? Absolutely not. But it does, you do get the feeling that, and history tells you this, that the month of June is more of teams sitting on their hands, probably wanting to evaluate what they have on their offseason rosters through mandatory minicamp and going from there. So I went down that rabbit hole for you and everybody else.
No, thank you. Yeah, I figured it wasn't exactly an active month. I mean, really the times when trades occur, late August, you get into camp and you're cutting down your roster, that's when trades will pop up quite a bit. That's really the most active time of the year for the NFL. The deadline, of course, which is now post week 9, and then draft for agency. You get some activity there, but those are really the only trade hotspots for football.
I guess if you're talking about a guy like Aiyuk right now and a potential trade in the month of June, I suppose if him and his agent came out right now and said, I don't care at this point, they obviously don't value me, I want out, trade me.
Yeah, then at that point, you may trade the guy, but it does not seem to be the direction things are headed right now.
Right. So just throwing it out there because we promised the folks that we would go down that rabbit hole. So there you go as far as June activity post June 1st and the month of trades.
Just quickly wrote an article this morning on Steelers Depot about we know that Russell Wilson, Justin Fields can't be sacked as much as they have, and they have to avoid negativity. But really, what is the line they have to stay under to really give you a concrete goal? Pulled some data, and you can read about it in the whole post there. I think staying under 50 sacks as a team is going to be the goal. Now, obviously, I shouldn't say it's the goal; it's the mandate. You want to be well under 50. You want to be under 40, but the data shows that teams who are sacked 50 plus times over the last decade make the playoffs about 10% of the time. Teams who are sacked even just below that at 45 to 49 times make the postseason about, I think, 37% of the time. Not a huge number, but a huge difference from the 50 plus club. So that is the bar that Pittsburgh has to look at, and hopefully obviously stay way under 50 sacks. But the further away from that goal, the higher their postseason odds are.
Okay, I did not get the opportunity this morning to dive deep into your data there, but give me the cliff notes. Too long, didn't read. Big picture takeaway. What is the percentage based on a 17 game schedule now? I guess if you'd average it all out, what in theory is the chances if they exceed 50 sacks of them making the playoffs?
Well, even under 16 game models, but just short answer, about 10% chance of making it.
Okay.
And if you're even in that 45 to 49 range, you're up over a third. And with a good defense and other elements, then you probably have a much higher chance than that. But that's just some of the data. I mean, obviously, the less you're sacked, the better chance you have of winning games. Sure. But just to put some numbers and some data on, I thought was interesting to explore.
And what is the main talks that we've had, about both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields since them being added was the amount of times they've been sacked. So that's why I focused there. That's where that comes. Yeah. All right, good data. I look forward and kind of digging a little bit deeper into that. But that took a lot of research, I would imagine.
A little bit of time, yeah. Also, the Browns extended Kevin Stefanski and GM Andrew Berry, so they will be, on paper, sticking around in Cleveland for a while longer.
Okay, what else do we have to tell the folks about today?
That's all I got, Dave. If you have anything else you'd like to add, feel free. If not, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, let's do that as we are about, an hour and 15 minutes in here. I don't think we've got too many here. Cole writes in, he's a longtime listener. He said he sat behind Arthur Smith at the Pirates game the other night. I couldn't help but notice him looking at a document titled QB Tip Sheet, which appeared to contain passing concepts with comments analysis. He says, out of respect for his privacy, that's all he glanced to see. Come on, Cole, you gotta get us pictures of that. No, I'm kidding. Question is, has either of you come across the concept of a QB tip sheet in your time researching offensive staff seminars or following the league? He says he has two plausible theories what it could have been: passing concepts reviewed, created, scouted by offensive staff, broken down by the OC; passing concepts used or reviewed by the quarterback, Russell Wilson in this case, with his thoughts and the way he views the concept. And I think that's kind of his takeaway there. Have you heard of QB tip sheet before?
I mean, it could be anything. I don't know, not looking at it. I mean, come on, Arthur. I know the Pirates offense is bad, but leave work at work for a couple minutes there. I don't know. It could be a variety of things. It could be just about basic fundamentals. It could be something conceptually. It could be more philosophical. I'm not aware of anything directly that I've read about coaches doing that. I'm sure they do, but what quarterback tip sheet means, it could be anything and everything.
Right. It's hard just going off. I mean, it could be related to pre-snap things, quarterbacks. It could be very different things there. I have not per se seen a document, I don't remember, titled QB tip sheet in like seminars and all like that. Not saying there's one not out. It'd be nice to have more working info of maybe what was on that sheet.
Right. Go back to those Pirates games.
Let's see. Speaking of the Pirates, just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. 1-0 home win against the Dodgers. Let's see. Jason Michael writes in about Peyton Wilson, catching up on some older podcasts that I missed, and I heard the discussion about expectation for Wilson's playing time. Your consensus seemed to be that he would get nickel dime snaps behind Roberts. He says the general perception seems to be that Wilson was a first-round talent that fell in the third round solely because of injury concerns. If that's the case, assuming he stays healthy, wouldn't it make sense that the goal should be to have him start and play the majority of the snaps by mid-season at the latest? He says if he had been the actual first-round selections, Yinzers would be losing their minds watching him play behind Roberts for any longer than that. I get the overall takeaway here, Jason, and that Wilson is one of the two Wilsons that I wrote about yesterday as well too. I think thinking back and where we sit now in the off season and watching more tape and all, it's hard not to be excited about Peyton Wilson, right?
Sure, he's exciting. He didn't fall to the third round because of a lack of talent. That's for sure. He fell for all the other, concerns, the injury concerns, the age concerns, the combination of both. We'll see. He'll be given the opportunity. The better he plays, the more he'll be given. So I was using that as a starting point for how he might first start getting some reps to be evaluated to see if he'll be able to earn some more or not. I mean, I think Queen will still work in dime. I know Wilson spoke about he's working in dime, maybe a second team thing when they rotate guys in during practice. But Roberts played well last year, and he's a hammer against the run and a tone setter, so I don't want to push him aside either. Point is, I was trying to get an idea of where Wilson would kind of begin and start things, and then you just evaluate from there in terms of adding his snaps or reducing his snaps based off his level of play.
And as far as putting things on his plate, I have no doubts that Peyton Wilson will be able to digest the defense as a whole. But even so, you're probably going to want to limit the menu per se, especially with him early in the season, because he's going to have some a lot of special teams responsibilities. And I have no doubt that if he stays healthy, he should excel in that phase of the game as well, too. But it is plausible that within the first, let's say, 6 games of the season that we see Wilson on the field in some sort of limited sub-package role, right?
Yeah, I think you will. And I was just kind of speculating about what that might be because, you have Queen as your every down guy, of course, and then Roberts, you figure is going to be playing in early downs, but I don't want to completely discount his coverage ability. He showed he can be more than just a thumper last year. So, again, we'll see how he looks and we'll kind of evaluate things from there.
Who is the guy of this class that you're most excited about at this point? Maybe
for year one or long-term upside?
Yeah, both.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of these guys I'm excited about. I think it's a good draft class overall. Fautanu, just in terms of what his potential could be, is really exciting to see. The investment of the offensive line overall is, getting me pumped up for sure to see how this vision is aligning with personnel and investment and seeing those things work together with great synergy is huge for this team. Peyton Wilson, if he hits, he's going to hit big. So probably those two, Peyton Wilson and Fautanu, in terms of long-term upside and what they, could be at their very best.
All right. Look forward to see how he's saying all the right things too. They're saying that that guy really wants to hit even during OTAs.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we got through a couple of emails there. I don't think we're missing anything. Any late breaking news here?
I don't believe so. Again, OTAs today and tomorrow, and then minicamp next week.
All right. So until Friday, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. We certainly do appreciate everybody that listens to the show and reads the site and comments or interacts with us on social media and all like that. So just want to put that out there. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.